Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It's Thursday, February 13th, 2020. I'm Michael Brooks. This is a Michael Thursday on the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, Eric Blanc, the Jacobin, on why single-payer healthcare is the best strategy for unions in America and the ongoing strikes and uprisings in France as we head into the Nevada contest. Bernie Sanders making the strong case for single payer, even as he finally calls James Carville a political hack and takes on Mayo Pete. Mike Bloomberg. Donald Trump isn't the only late Roman scenario, folks. Mike Bloomberg is destroying democracy, and he's hiring so many operatives at state and local level that he is literally starving the progressive infrastructure of the country. He'll also lose to Donald Trump. Amy Klobuchar, biggest backer, Cargill, is the cause of any number of anti-union and public health crises in this country. Donald Trump's approval ratings remain unchanged after his impeachment acquittal, and 8 Republicans do say apparently they will vote to limit Trump's ability to attack Iran as Ilhan Omar unveils a new quote-unquote progressive baseline in foreign policy. The new Trump budget has major cuts to Social Security and Medicare and other vital social programs. Bill Barr will appear in front of a House committee after the very controversial / authoritarian intervention in the Roger Stone sentencing. And teachers in Colombia announce a 2-day strike to defend the right to live as President Lula is received by Pope Francis. All that and more on today's Majority Report. Folks, we will also unveil a new character in the later half of the show. Where is Nelson Mandela gone now? Is he the type of person that would say, I don't like that tweet, I abandoned the ANC?
He's always evolving.
I wanted to fight against apartheid, but then there was a Bernie bro with 20 followers who tweeted something.
We don't know how he would be if he existed in a world with the pig pooping on its own balls meme.
When I saw the pig pooping on its own balls meme, it was clear that we needed to stop our struggle. People making, we'll get to all of this nonsense about, the next wave of the melodrama about Bernie Twitter, but 99.99999% of it is disingenuous, dishonest, delusional, insane, and manufactured. But to the extent it's real, I mean, I really would invite folks to really, really ask yourself if voting against a single payer and defeating Trump is something that you would reverse because of you didn't like some Chapo meme or something. I think I would invite you to reflect.
There are really people who think that way.
And that is something that should be psychologically.
There's probably
studied.
more now that the candidates are feeding that narrative. Frankly.
Right. Now that there's a bunch of candidates who are just like, I used to be with Bernie, but then I saw somebody post a blue balls meme.
I know one. She's like my pet, that kind of person. I don't know what we call them, but she did eventually come around to Bernie, partly as a result of friends like me who were very patient with her and not mean. So it can be done.
Well, okay. That's awesome. And of course, you should always try to treat everybody should try to treat their fellow humans well. As in, I emphasize everybody, as distinct from disingenuous, dishonest, demented campaign
but
narratives.
particularly those who are engaged in politics on a non-professional level. Like, don't be mean to those people.
That's
unless
right.
they're fascists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's just a regular ass person.
So that being said, I mean, I think we can all agree that we need to have unity at all costs, obviously. So, and because of the sort of whining from various candidates about people engaging in politics, I have really rethought. When I first saw this moment, I thought that this was a brave stand for democracy, because Mike Bloomberg, people need to be really clear. It is not just that he has an absolutely appalling record on every single measurable issue you can imagine. It is that his intervention and buying of the process is the next step if this comes to fruition. First of all, he'll lose to Trump in a landslide. Secondly, it is the formalization. We've known that democracy is sick and in trouble. Bloomberg's a nominee. We need to rethink where we are. We're done. And we need to have an actual conversation about democracy and norms, not a real, I like the West Wing and I'm freaked out by Trump one, but a real one. You have to understand the difference between even an appalling candidate like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton and the contradictions that they represent versus the unmitigated representation of plutocracy buying its way into the electoral form. That all being said, so I thought that this protest video we're about to see was awesome. But again, after some whining from some of the candidates and their surrogates, we might have a different thought on it. But you're going to need to make, take this, check this out on your own.
Check out this Bernie bro.
This happened yesterday. Here was a Bernie bro at a Bloomberg rally in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This Bernie bro got very divisive.
My breath. I am that excited.
It's also divisive that they cut her mic, though, too, to be fair.
I mean, that is true. There's a lot of division.
A lot of division go down. Let's just play this again.
Yeah.
My breath. I am that excited.
That is plutocracy.
And divisive that they boo her, too.
Whoa, they're booing her. That's also, I don't think that that's unity.
Who are these cucks who like Bloomberg?
I hope they're being paid.
Yeah, probably a good chunk of them are.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just rich authoritarian liberals,
or they're rich authoritarian liberals.
Who was that guy who walked off the stage?
I can't believe it. I mean, I've been hearing that you aren't supposed to, like, I don't know, tweet a joke at major news personalities, or God forbid, to ask them to correct their lies or defamatory statements. I thought we were past all of that. I thought we were supposed to have a unity campaign. So obviously that aggressive Bernie bro that you saw just
Bernie
there,
should call out that woman.
Yeah, Bernie should call out that woman. Absolutely. That's number one. That's the most important thing that needs to happen in the campaign right now. But then they booed her protest. So it's all just very non-unity based and divisive. It's almost like we're running in a primary. So Mike Bloomberg can destroy any last vestige of credibility of the Democratic Party, of the news media, of political leadership across the board, of the broad center left in this country. And we'll get to this terrifying report that Ryan Grimm did on how he's buying off talent across the country, which speaks to broader structural problems. That's all going to happen. Don't for a second blame people who say they are not able to vote for a oligarch stop and frisk mayor I'm not even going to entertain that whining and conversation.
It's like saying, hey, we're instead of doing this thing that might have a chance to beat Trump, we're going to instead try to fly over the Atlantic in a air balloon made out of cotton candy. Please get on, or you don't really care about,
right.
Like, it's not going to happen, guys.
It's not going to happen.
Got to draw the line somewhere.
If you do that, you go do that. So, and let's just be really clear. If Mike Bloomberg's going to go to Wisconsin and say, I'm richer than Donald Trump, and I'm going to take away your e-cigarette. If you think that that's a winning strategy, then more power to you. And I really hope you're getting compensated to be so delusional. Donald Trump has not had strong material like this since the halcyon days of the Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush era. Here he is this morning. Mini Mike Bloomberg is a loser, all capital, who has money but can't debate and has zero presence. By the way, this is why they are hiding him and have him so tightly choreographed, because they know that Mike Bloomberg is immensely unlikable and repulsive to anybody he isn't paying. He reminds me of a tiny version of Jeb, quote unquote, low energy Bush. But Jeb has more political skill and has treated the black community much better than Mini, 2 exclamation points. And there's a serious point here. For people who haven't been paying attention, and at some point you have to start thinking strategically about Donald Trump. Yes, Donald Trump is obscene. Yes, he is disgusting. Yes, it's a threat to democracy with him and Bill Burr.
Yes, he's hypocritical.
Yes, he's, oh, wow, yeah. Whoa, no, actually, keep emphasizing that one. That will be a really political killer. Okay, yes, he's a racist. But starting with his Super Bowl ad, Donald Trump is running a very, very, very clear and conscious campaign to get a couple of percentage points from African-American voters, which is all he needs. That's all he needs. If he flips 2-3%, he wins. And you're going to run him, somebody against him, who absolutely he can pummel. Now, by the way, I think, frankly, there's some of the dynamic here with how overt and insane Bloomberg's racism. I think there's some dynamic where I've talked to some people, some black friends, frankly, who are just like, yeah, duh. A lot of white politicians are like this. He just says it, right? And I think there's some element of the white liberal folks are more shocked by this. But the bottom line is that, first of all, we all need to be shocked by this. And secondly, okay, all you need to do is pull 2-3 percentage points, and Donald Trump can dine off of clips like this.
From stop and frisk to fingerprinting, Mayor Bloomberg's latest crime-fighting idea has a lot of people angry tonight. The mayor wants to fingerprint more than 600,000 people who live in public housing.
What we really should have is fingerprinting to get in. And of course, since there's an allegation that some of these apartments aren't occupied by the people who originally have the lease.
That's like invasion of somebody's privacy or something. Why you want to fingerprint somebody? It's bad enough when you get arrested, you get fingerprinted.
Why? For what? We live here. What? All these years, this is not jail.
You want to prove you live here? All you got to do is ask to see the lease. Well, I don't think it's right. So Bloomberg needs to stop his mess.
This is we talk about pilot programs of authoritarianism. Bloomberg did that on the people of color of New York City. I mean, be very clear about that. He went further in some key areas than the Trump administration has been able to do. And look, maybe ICE under Bloomberg will do some, emotional sensitivity trainings and ask people their preferred pronoun or something. But if you think there's going to be any structural change from a man who justified spying on college students' whitewater rafting trips, you're out of your mind.
Or on the take.
Yeah.
Or on the take.
He's also said a lot of incredibly sexist things that put grab him by the pussy to shame. I mean, someone named Sarah in NY has a whole tweet thread about all the sexist, misogynistic, and rape apologia statements that have come out of that guy's mouth. And if you think that Trump won't try to weaponize that against him, you're crazy. Like, Trump runs on liberal hypocrisy.
Exactly. And it would work better because Republicans don't care about that, and Democrats, I guess, too. I mean, yeah.
Well, a lot of, well, again, we also see how cynical that right? Like, how many people who like, I want an intersectional body language expert to look at micro expressions on Bernie's face when he condemned police violence are going to go like, he apologized. Nah, take a scan of the retina. What are you going to do? He's a Republican.
You're
all right.
showing your asses.
All right. Okay. Today's show is brought to you by Third Love. I know everybody loves when Sam reads these ads. Designed with measurements for millions of women, Third Love's bra styles are made to fit your life. They have over 80 bra sizes. But know that the only one that matters is yours. We have a testimonial here. I like that they don't have a zillion options, so it's easy to choose something quickly. The fit is great. I usually have to return bras I order online, even though they're in my size. I ordered 2 and both fit. That almost never happens. Super comfortable for an everyday bra, but not as boring. As t-shirt bras. Subtle, cute details, so I don't feel basic. This is hands down the most comfortable bra you'll own, with straps that won't slip, tagless labels, lightweight memory foam cups to mold to your shape. Plus, returns and exchange are free and easy. In fact, Third Love's perfect fit promise: every customer has 60 days to wear it, wash it, and put it to the test. And if you don't love it, return it to Third Love, and Third Love will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. Third Love knows that it's a perfect bra for everyone, so right now they're offering our listeners 50% off your first 15. Third Love knows that there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now they're offering our listeners 15% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/majority now to find a perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/majority for 15% off. And the makers of Quip electric toothbrush want you to know that the single discovery that matters most for your dental health care: if you have good habits, you are good. That means brushing for 2 minutes twice a day, flossing regularly, no matter what brand you use. Quip makes that simple, starting with an electric toothbrush, refillable floss, and anticavity toothpaste. Quip's electric brush has sensitive sonic vibrations with a built-in timer and 30-second pulse to guide a full and even clean. And the Quip floss dispenser comes with pre-marked string to help you use just enough. The best part is that Quip delivers fresh brush head, floss, and toothpaste refills to your door every 3 months with free shipping, so your routine is always right. Join over 3 million healthy mouths and get Quip today, starting at $25. And I've been on the Quip train for over a year. I love the timer, so I know exactly that 2 minutes. It's very satisfying. It makes you feel like you've accomplished 2 goals in the day. And if you go to quip.com/majority right now, you get your first refill free. That's a first refill free at quip.com/majority. Go to GETQUIP.com/majority. Quip, the Good Habits Company. We'll be right back with Eric Blanc. Majority Report, Michael Brooks here. Joining us now is Eric Blanc. He is the author of Red State Revolt. He's also a national surrogate for Bernie Sanders for president. Eric, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. So, Eric, protests and strikes are ongoing in France, and particularly in this, authoritarian Mike Bloomberg moment. It's helpful for us probably to think about Emmanuel Macron. What's been happening there? We've covered that a bit on the show, but take us through it. What are the strikes about? What's at stake? And how are they ongoing?
Right. The best way to think about what's going on in France is imagine what would happen if we elected Pete Buttigieg to the United States. Basically, you have a billionaire bot, so-called centrist, who once in office has basically made it his single-handed mission to roll back the most important gains of the welfare state in France, one really since World War II. Some of your listeners might know that France, because of a really strong labor movement, has one of the best pension systems, best social security systems in the world. And it's precisely because of that the capitalist class, through the mechanism of this centrist government, so-called, is trying to roll back these gains, the pensions. Specifically, the proposal that Macron is trying to push through, and which has been debated in Parliament, and that in March and February is going to get potentially voted on. The proposal would basically make it so you have to work longer and that you're going to get less in pensions when you retire. It destabilized the current system, and it puts France in a system much more resembling the United States. And so because of that, there's just been a dramatic explosion of class struggle from below. You've seen actually the longest strike in the history of modern France. Really, since last November, there's been strike after strike after strike, particularly in rail and in the public transportation system, but in the private sector as well. Teachers, garbage collectors just recently, there's been general strike after general strike after general strike. And the amazing thing about the movement is that despite the disruption it's caused, not only for capitalists, but really for the population as a whole, because when you shut down a city, it's not easy to get things done. Despite that, support is overwhelming still on the side of the workers. So the struggle remains very fluid, and it's going to be up to workers to continue to put pressure to try to make the government cede.
What can we say and learn about? We don't want to go into these, essentialist arguments, but it seems to me that, and certainly, that's what your book is about. There's strikes, there's uprisings happening across the United States. I think people increasingly recognize that there really does need to be a politics that is synchronized with electoral forces, but can exist outside of them and can mobilize people for a variety of different reasons and contexts. But it does seem like, France does have this relatively unique commitment, certainly in Europe and certainly compared to the United States. It makes it seem more analogous to what we're seeing in Chile or Ecuador or Haiti. What is it in that political culture? Is it just the ongoing strength of labor? Is it that there is a relatively developed class consciousness there? What can we learn so we aren't just looking at them going like, man, every time they threaten to take away those people's baguettes, they really go for it.
Yeah, those baguettes are pretty dope, to be honest. But it's not really the explanation. I think, this is, as you mentioned, the stereotype of France. People always say, "Oh, the French, they're just striking again," and there is something to it. I do think that the level of class solidarity is higher, but rather than look at that as a product of like some sort of essential cultural trait, I think it's the opposite. Is that actually that solidarity and that cultural trait has been forged politically by a strong labor movement, and so there's no real reason to think that that type of culture of solidarity can't be forged elsewhere. In fact, in many places in the world, it existed and was the norm. Even in the United States, if you were living in a union town up and through the 70s, you had this sense really that you were in it together, an injury to one is an injury to all. So that type of solidarity born from strong unions, strong working class parties, that really permeates a community so that you have local union halls, that you really feel part of something bigger than yourself. That's really what has been born, has been really broken down since neoliberalism in the 80s, 90s, and since. And in France, I think part of what you're seeing right now is that process of rolling back union strength just hasn't gone as far. And so one of the consequences of that is that there is still enough of this legacy of understanding that we are part of a class that is against a tiny minority of society that is exploiting us, and that when some of our brothers and sisters go on strike, they're not doing that for selfish reasons, no matter what the media says, they're actually doing it for all of us. And so I find it very hopeful, because what you see then in France is what we should aspire to as well. And it's what I think is amazing about these teacher strikes. You see it even in a red state, there where you wouldn't expect there to be, anything resembling something like French levels of class solidarity. But in the process of the strike itself, the strike produced a sense that we're in it together, that we're united, and that we have common interests against the tiny minority that rules society. So I'm actually pretty optimistic that the French type of social struggle, you can see that percolating, as you mentioned, across the world, and there's no reason to think that you can't see that in the United States as well.
Give us one of those red state examples that you think really exemplifies that.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me in early 2018, where would you least expect there to be a successful statewide strike, I would have put Oklahoma and Arizona at the top of my list. It's bonkers. If you really think what happened, it's really, really remarkable that not only did you have strikes, but they were statewide and successful in some of the most, so-called conservative states in the country. West Virginia, we can bracket because West Virginia actually does have more of a labor tradition, but there's not a strong living labor tradition in Oklahoma and Arizona. And nevertheless, what you saw in early 2018 is literally hundreds of thousands of workers, most of whom had not been part of the union, most of whom who had never been part of a strike, shut down their states, their public education system, paralyzing and creating a social crisis for literally millions of students and parents, and forcing Republican governments to cede to their demands. And those strikes were overwhelmingly supported by the population. You're talking 75%, 80% public support for these strikes, even though the majority of people in the education and in the state were not, quote unquote liberals. These were people who were maybe just checked out of politics, might have voted for Trump. About half of the union members and half of the teachers had voted for Trump. And nevertheless, because when struggle happens, you learn very quickly, they were able to see through the process of struggle, through the process of organizing, who was actually on their side and who wasn't. So you had a lot of educators I spoke with said, I voted for Trump. I thought we needed some change, and that didn't stop me from going on strike against this Republican governor, whether it was Oklahoma or Arizona. So I do think that part of the difficulty is just when you don't have a political working class alternative presented, people check out of politics. But when you do have a mass viable alternative, the types of folks that we often dismiss, I think are generally smart and rational and will seize that opportunity. And I think that should give us a lot of optimism about the potential for class conflict and class organization in the United States, even where you might least expect it.
Definitely. So we're going to get to single payer and why that's actually not only going to be good for everybody, it's actually profoundly strategically important for rebuilding the union movement in the United States. But before that, I mean, you're somebody in the campaign. I think big picture, I mean, it shouldn't be lost that Bernie Sanders is, basically is taking on literally everybody in every type of discredited establishment imaginable. And he won Iowa and he won New Hampshire. He's heading into Nevada looking really strong. He's heading into South Carolina, looking actually increasingly strong, and his national numbers are starting to move absolutely in the right direction. So I want people to feel the accomplishment, the strength, the optimism, the momentum of that. It's undeniable. And Bernie Sanders is, in fact, if we're speaking in terms of reality, he is the front runner. He's also the one who does the best against Donald Trump in most polls. Now, that being said, there hasn't been a radical increase in turnout so far. The margins have been really tight. And we know that there's, all sorts of potential games and fuckery, excuse my language, that could take place. And, unless it's, aimed at Bernie, unless there's more sort of points on the board. So can you just give us your thoughts as somebody connected with the campaign, but obviously with your own analysis about where we are and what the state of play looks like moving forward?
Yeah, I think the first point you made is really the essential one to foreground, which is it's really remarkable that you have a democratic socialist who's going up against the entire economic and political establishment as the front runner, right? Now, no matter what else you want to say, that is a fact of world historic importance. And it says something about the state of disenchantment with politics as usual in the United States. The fact that we've gotten this far is really a testament to the organization and enthusiasm from below, because there's no way you win, even if it's close, there's no way you win in Iowa, in New Hampshire, without a massive amount of bottom-up energy and organizing, because, we're going up against 7-to-1 television funding against us. Right. Just the entire establishment continues to smear us. So I think as far as turnout, you did see actually a dramatic increase in youth turnout in Iowa. I believe it was 33% increase of young people under 30. I haven't seen the final numbers for New Hampshire, but what I read last night was that it actually was equal to, or if not the highest turnout in the history of New Hampshire. And so I do think part of the difficulty is that Bernie and our campaign are turning out new people, people of color, young people. But there is, I think, a malaise amongst some of the other voters and other campaigners because it's such a crowded field. So I think there is kind of a wait-and-see attitude amongst a certain sector of the primary. And so I don't think that dynamic would be replicated in the general. I think that what we see in the general is Bernie continue to bring out young voters, people of color, working-class voters, and some of the more traditional Democratic voters who hate Trump will vote as well. So I'm not actually very worried about that. What I'm worried about right now is how do we keep up the momentum, because the attacks are just going to keep on coming. And so we just need to be able to out-organize them.
Right. And that's really the big thing. And even just the media, trying to constantly downplay the significance of these wins and the power of the momentum, they want you to dampen that energy so you're not knocking on doors, making phone calls, and contributing if you can. And just staying absolutely ruthless and relentless is the only way it happens.
Yeah, I think you need to inoculate yourself.
Right.
In the union movement, that's what we call it. When you both for yourself and then for your coworkers, you basically have to explain what the boss's tactics are. And the boss's tactics are fear and intimidation and to try to grind you down. And so I think a lot of people, even on the campaign, and people who were volunteers were a little shell-shocked after Iowa. We knew the attacks were coming, but then just to see it so blatant, it could be paralyzing, but you need to work through that paralyzation and understand this is going to continue to come, and despite that, we're going to win.
Absolutely. Single-payer healthcare. We'll speak broadly here, but it's been something that Joe Biden actually first tried to weaponize. And now Pete Buttigieg is going very strong in this notion that somehow universal single-payer healthcare, solving the problem of the healthcare crisis in a structural way, is somehow antithetical to rebuilding a bruised and beaten labor movement in this country. Explain to us why that's wrong, and then what would single-payer healthcare actually do for the union movement in the United States?
Yeah, the reality is that the reason establishment Democrats are attacking single-payer Medicare for all has nothing to do with them wanting to rebuild the labor movement, or nothing to do with their supposed desire to help union members keep their health benefits. These are the same politicians who are getting funded by the billionaires who are literally attacking unions, who are literally trying to roll back and prevent healthcare rights for the rest of the population. So there's a level of cynicism that I think we need to foreground from the beginning. It's not about a debate over the best way to provide health care for all. What it is about is trying to use a cynical ploy to try to fight against the one measure that could actually implement the healthcare we need for all citizens, all people in this country. And so what Medicare for All, single payer, would do for the labor movement, the first thing we should say is that it would not take away the healthcare plans and healthcare benefits of union members. This is the big bugaboo that keeps on going thrown out there, but it's just not true. Actually, what Medicare for All would do is not only expand the great wins that have been won by union members to the rest of the working class. For many union members, it would actually be a dramatic increase because you're talking about dental, health, dental, vision, all sorts of added benefits that a lot of union members don't currently have. So it's not taking away your current doctor, it's not taking away your current plan. But the big reason why it's so important, I think, is first of all, by taking healthcare off of the bargaining table, what that means is that you can have the union movement finally start fighting for the rest of the things that we don't have because we've been fighting for so long just to maintain healthcare, which in every other country is guaranteed as, in industrialized country at least, is guaranteed as a right. So you have anyone who's ever been on a union bargaining team just knows that you spend half of your time trying to fight for to maintain or to get a little bit better healthcare benefits. And so from the second you don't have to do that because it's guaranteed, what that means is that you can fight for better working conditions. You can fight for better wages. You can fight so that your union resources aren't going towards just this rearguard defense of your current health benefit plans, but you can start organizing new workers, right? And I think that ultimately, if the labor movement is going to get beyond where we're at right now, which is at our lowest number of members in history, as far as percent of the working population, the only way you're going to build a strong labor movement is if the unions not only fight for their own members, but fight for the whole working class. And Medicare for All is the single best way that the labor movement can place itself as part of this broad political revolution at the head of it and say, look, unions are fighting for all working people, and the way we're going to prove that right now is we're going to win you all health care. For that 90% of workers who right now aren't covered in a union, don't have health care packages like some of us do, we are going to make sure that you join us, and that's how we're going to all move forward together.
And when unions do that, when unions go outside of, very, very sort of narrow sets of interest and relationships, which the enemies of working people have always been able to weaponize to smear and lie about the entire labor movement. But when labor unions don't make that mistake and they don't go insular and they don't just kind of build into small patronage networks, when they go out from that, as an example, the incredible courage of the Chicago Teachers Union going back, particularly in 2012, which I think is another one of these moments that we really need to recognize as the beginning of some type of actual fight back here politically, along with things like Occupy and so on, that when they do that, if they came out and said, our fight is for us and it's also for everybody, one, and I think I just want to underline it, strategically it's necessary for labor because you're taking the major threat off of the table from the boss, which is taking away your health care. And then secondly, you reinforce the rest of the country and the rest of the working class. Look, this is for all of us. This isn't like some sort of narrow club that looks out for itself. It's about the entirety of us, against the bosses.
Yeah, I mean, think about every single time there's a strike or every single time unions want anything, what is the line of the corporate media? What is the line of the boss? It's that these are greedy workers just fighting for themselves, right? And so everything we need to do to push back against that has to be foregrounding, particularly at this moment in U.S. history when our movement is so weak, foregrounding that we're fighting for all working people. And you can't do that if you pit your perceived interests against the rest of the working class. The irony here is that even for union members themselves, Medicare for All would be a big benefit, right? It's not like actually you have to make a sacrifice for yourself so that other workers can do better. An injury one is an injury at all. It's not just a slogan, but it has a material basis, which is to say that actually when the rest of the working class is better organized, has more rights, that is going to make you stronger too, because there's always a race to the bottom under capitalism. So the more that you can raise the bottom up, that means that there's less pressure on you to be able to give up, what you've won. And so we do have a dramatic moment, I think, a juncture for the labor movement right now. Bernie's movement shows that there's an appetite amongst a ton of people in this country for really dramatic change in course. And it's up to the union movement to decide whether it's going to be fully on board with that. I think one of the exciting things that has gotten lost in some of the recent, media-infused drama is that actually Bernie has more labor endorsements than every other candidate. Not only that, he has more union endorsements than all of the other candidates combined. I was making a list. I think it's at 25 union endorsements right now, including some of the most progressive.
Yeah. Sorry, just telling the. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and not only is his list of endorsers so high, but you have some of the most important, most militant unions in the country. You're talking about National Nurses Union. You're talking about United Teachers Los Angeles. You're talking about Unite Here locals all across California who represent hotel and service workers who are in a similar situation about fighting for their health care, but also expanding that. So I think it's really, these unions are showing what I hope the rest of the labor movement does, and it's not too late. If there's pressure from below and the movement continues to grow, I think you're going to see more and more unions continue to get on board the Bernie train.
29 unions for Sanders, 9 for Biden, 4 for Warren. That's exactly the point. And all of the most militant and serious ones, obviously, for Sanders. Eric, final thought real quick. I believe, is it correct that you just arrived in Nevada?
Yeah, I got here last night. I'm
all
really
right,
excited.
Well, here's the classic cable news question. Like, how's it looking? How's it feeling?
Yeah, I think we're going to win Nevada. The big story of the Bernie campaign this year, and that we're already seeing on the ground, is that really the base of how we're going to win is working class people of color. And in Nevada, unlike Iowa and New Hampshire, you have a large number of those types of communities. So I'm really excited actually to see just how much organizing we're going to do and how much we're going to win by. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of attacks. But if there's one place where I think it could happen, places like Nevada, California, this is really the bastion of what's going to take to put Bernie into the White House.
Eric Blanc, as always, appreciate your time. Everybody go buy a copy of Red State Revolt, really important book about the grassroots uprisings and strikes across so-called Red State America, or maybe a precursor to Red State America. And he's also a national surrogate for the Bernie Sanders for President campaign. Eric, thanks a million.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Michael.
Take care. All right, folks. We're gonna have to be done by 2 today because of some scheduling things. So we'll get to the fun half quickly. Got a bunch of sound to get to. Become a patron, become a member of the Majority Report, majority.fm/become a member. Check out justcoffee.coop, fair trade tea, coffee, or chocolates. On the Michael Brooks Show last night, Malika Jabali and Crystal Ball. The title of the episode is Establishment Meltdown in 3, 2, 1. We went deep. The only worthwhile thing about the blemish on our society and democracy about Mike Bloomberg's candidacy is the ability to go deep into his record and deep into the 1% horror show that he inflicted as a door to understand basically neoliberal authoritarianism. So I think that's important. We also went over the state of the race, why Bernie Sanders is the front runner and you should be optimistic, and a whole bunch of other things. This Sunday, Matt Karp and I went deep on the election, the historical context, and what Bloomberg really represents in terms of democracy and the end of it. Next week, vacation, obviously, but new, never-before-seen conversations with Adolph Reed Jr. and Aaron Bastani. Grab your tickets April 3rd. The North Door live show in Austin with Anna Kasparian and Abby Martin. And become a patron for the whole thing, patreon.com/TMBS. All right, guys, what else?
This week on the Antifada, we have a brand new episode of Prolit Cult, producer AP Andy's side project about space, sci-fi, the paranormal, and the parapolitical. In this episode, he speaks with Joseph L. Flatley, the investigative journalist behind the so-called Prophet from Pittsburgh podcast. They talk about Gabriel of Urantia and his small UFO apocalypse cult in the desert of Tucson and all the crazy, crazy shit that went on with that. It's always an interesting time at Prolit Cult. Also, we still have our episode from last week where Sean goes deep into political economy with a couple of left comms that he met on twitter.com. And it's a really, really good episode for people who want to understand why us crazy commies are always talking about how capitalism cannot continue. They go into great detail. It's good, folks.
Capitalism, not good.
Not good. Very bad. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, some people were asking me if they could give me money to fund my trip to New Hampshire with 3 other people. The answer is yes. I want to thank everybody who already donated money to us. And my Venmo is Jamie-Peck. If you want to, is that allowed? Am I allowed to do that? We spent all our own money on it. People wanted to give us money.
Oh no, it's
you don't
an
have
FCC
to if you don't want
violation.
to. And then I'm probably going to go to Massachusetts during our week off. So if I end up with any extra money, I'm going to donate it to the Bernie Sanders campaign. But thank you so much to everybody who helped support our trip.
Awesome.
Robert O. Paxton, in his Anatomy of Fascism, cites the Klan as one of the early instances of fascism. But in the most recent episode of Literary Hangover, we talk about Nathaniel Bacon's rebellion and how I think that is sort of like a proto-fascist event. Basically, he exploited the economic anxiety of the indentured servants and slave classes and the, I guess, middle class of minor planters against the globalist monopolist governors. And yeah, I mean, some people like to cite it as a example of a sort of a cross-racial rebellion, and it is one, but the thing that unified them was they wanted to murder Native Americans and take the land. So not exactly the best.
Not the wokest
rebellion. Not a woke rebellion at all. And
actually maybe a woke rebellion.
No, Bacon was a bad guy. So
no. I mean that in a bad way.
Oh, right.
Maybe a...
Gotten so far around again.
Yeah, got so far.
Anyway, so a lot of people are checking that out on the patreon.com/literary hangover page.
All right, folks, there's a problem with the IMs. I'll see if I can figure it out, but we're going to go to the fun half, and we will see you there.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous, you're a little bit upset, you're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27, 1/2, 5 eighths, 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey Sam, hey Andy, you guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Welcome to the fun half. Michael Brooks here with the gang. As I say, folks, pretty tight one. Let me see if... Oh, okay, great. We did get the IMs. I want to thank you all 100. I think you all are 100% right about online messaging and persuasion. We messaged correctly about being disappointed with Warren demanding Medicare for all without personally attacking supporters. We can peel off remaining progressives that she thought might be backing her because of progressive policies. I mean, look, yeah, we'll get to this in a second. I just think it's very important. I'll always stipulate, try to be basically nice to normal supporters of any candidate. But don't allow this, because you always have to look at what there's a generic statement which applies to anybody. Like, hey, Kamala Harris people, don't wish death on Bernie, as I've seen. Hey, Elizabeth Warren people, don't, lie about other candidates, which I've seen. Hey, candidates, people supporting every single person, don't be a jerk. And if you do, whatever, do better. Okay, we can all let's just dispense with generic sort of social media civility. What we'll get to in a second. I want to do these Bernie clips first, though. Is really though, it's like you always the way the discourse will be used will be weaponized to try to suppress people who support Bernie Sanders specifically, and then even more specifically, because again, remember, like with working families drama, not to relitigate that, but there would be like examples of like, oh, look at this Bernie person being horrible. And it was like, hey, can you release your internal process? So let's be just very real about how totally disingenuous and weaponized most of this is deployed. And also in reality that this isn't really what's driving anything.
Yeah, they did that on friggin' SNL the other night.
Yeah, I mean,
who was that joke even for? Who understood the joke?
I mean, that's
about
also
how Bernie is like the head of this troll army that he could call off, but he won't. Larry David, I am disappointed in you.
But it's all just, that's exactly it. And again, that's just social circle. Everybody's at the same, parties, complaining about the same things, making up the same stories, having their own personal sense of entitlement. And we just can't indulge that too much, frankly.
Yeah, don't take too much comfort in Larry David in anything. I mean, he's funny, but he did max out to Buttigieg.
Yeah, so he's politics.
No.
I mean, look, he's rich. All right,
That's his cousin. Oh my goodness.
I know, that's really not cool. I agree. All right. Bernie Sanders is out here killing it on TV, and you should be in the same happy warrior spirit as the frontrunner, Bernie Sanders. Here he is talking with Chris Hayes about why he will always have more union support than the mayor of the third or fourth largest town. Ex-mayor of the third, fourth, or largest town in Indiana who can't win statewide.
Nevada, putting out a flyer that seemed to sort of attack your Medicare for All position, talking about how union members have fought very hard for their health care and it shouldn't be taken away from them. And then Pete Buttigieg kind of piggybacking on that attack, saying this is why labor unions are skeptical or even opposed to your Medicare for All position. What's your response to that?
My response is that I have a lot more union support than Pete Buttigieg has, or I think ever will have, and that many, many unions throughout this country, including some in Unite Here, and the Culinary Union is part of Unite Here, absolutely understand that we've got to move to Medicare for all. And the reason is, if you talk to union negotiators, they will tell you they spend half of their time arguing against cutbacks for the health care that they have. They're losing wage increases because the cost of health care is soaring. When everybody in America has comprehensive health care, and when we join the rest of the industrialized world by guaranteeing health care to all people, unions can then negotiate for higher wages, better working conditions, better pensions. So I think the future for unions is through Medicare for all.
I'm really glad they're hitting this point, because that's really the bottom line self-interest and just true point that needs to be made. When we were talking about single payer a year or two ago, the point was actually that in addition, of course, to the fact that it's a moral obscenity that not every single person has healthcare in this country, it was the fact that giving people single payer was going to be the tip of the spear for a fighting chance for this country's labor movement. So not only is Pete Buttigieg lying, and yes, go back to the stat, Bernie Sanders has 29 union endorsements, Biden has 9, Warren has 4. I think Buttigieg may have none, but certainly a minuscule amount, if any. Pete Buttigieg is not only not a person of the labor union movement, but by lying and spinning and fear-mongering about Medicare for all, he's helping set it back. As he is with so many other key policy areas. So I'm really glad to see them holding that message.
Any candidate, propagating that message against universal health care is harming actively Medicare for all.
And harming actively the American union movement.
I looked into this a little bit. Do you guys want to talk about what's going on with that union?
Well, let's get to that. Let's play one more clip, and then yes, you're talking about the cap thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that what? All right. Is that? I mean, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was like, why would this union endorse or go against a policy that would help all workers, including their own? And I looked into it a little bit. It turns out, like we talked about yesterday, this did not come from the rank and file. This came from the union bosses. And the head of this union sits on the board of CAP, the Center for American Progress. This is some Neera Tanden shit. This is coordinated.
Neera was doing a lot of work for this last night, actually. Right. She's on the reply to this tweet here. Daniel Marins, Brandon, can you go to this? Daniel Marins tweeted out, the idea that a powerful union embedded in the Democratic establishment was seriously considering endorsing Bernie, let alone that his supporters' meanness turned them away, is laughable. Neera Tanden, in the replies there, is the idea here you're a neutral reporter of events in this primary? She misspelled reporter.
And then Brianna Joy Gray responded, have you said anything about Bloomberg's racial profiling
And
yet?
Neera didn't respond
And
to
Neera
that.
did not respond to that.
You don't say. Also, these union bosses make money administering this healthcare program. So of course they wouldn't want Medicare for all, because that's going to take away a stream of revenue. There is some legitimate fear, perhaps, although I think it's very short-sighted, that if healthcare is not being held over people's heads, they will have less of a reason to join this union and pay dues, even though when we get Medicare for all, the benefits, the savings, there's a corollary in there that they have to accrue to the workers instead of the bosses in the form of wages or other benefits. So like I was saying yesterday, not all unions are terribly democratic. This did not come from the rank and file. And in fact, the rank and file workers have just released a statement from rank and file workers from Culinary 226 and Unite Here members are spreading an open statement in support of Bernie Sanders and Medicare for all as a result against union leadership. I sent that to you, Matt. I don't know if
I
you
think we should find that. And I'll look, let me do the quick Sam sort of thing here that look, just because this could be something they sincerely believe, it's a good thing that a union person sits on cap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very important. The big takeaway is that, yes, this is a union that is hip to hip with the right-wing Democratic Party establishment. It's obviously coordinated, and it fits a couple of different lanes because again, the next stage here is we're going to do the 50 millionth iteration of whining about Bernie's social media support and lying about it. And let's just be very clear. If you're actually a normal terrestrial person who's not supporting Bernie Sanders because of Twitter conduct, you need to take a weeks-long look in the mirror. But beyond that, it's a distraction from the actual political dynamics and what actually moves things in Nevada, as an example. So you go back to 2016, was it we won't use the word rigged, and were votes stolen or things like that? No, absolutely not. But does Harry Reid know how to do machine politics there? Were people's shifts at unions, at jobs twisted around? Were people's ability to go out and work that primary in a way that would benefit Sanders? Of course that was. That's politics.
There's high-level favor trading.
That's how it works there. And so let's read the statement if we can. I think Zad Jalani pulled it. This is the statement from rank and file workers. Unite Here and Bernie Sanders share a longstanding commitment to fighting for health care and workers' rights. Bernie's Medicare for All plan would be a huge benefit to Unite Here's members because it would expand and improve upon our health care benefits, choices available to our union, provide benefits to our extended family and adult children currently excluded from our plans, guarantee uninterrupted health care regardless of layoff, job loss, or disability, completely eliminate out-of-pocket costs such as copays and premiums, guarantee money saved by employers will go to workers and not our bosses, giving members a pay raise. I just want to say really quickly, it's absolutely important that we be precise and we understand when a talking point or spin might have some salience. And I absolutely could see how a top-line fear-mongering about single payer without extended information could be effective and needed to be responded to. That's the part where we need to say, hey, we need to be really thorough here and make the case and explain to people how things would work. That is totally separate from indulging transparently bad faith, dishonest, and fundamentally anti-Medicare for all spin that will never be appeased because it's about people's self-interests and not about policy. And we need to disaggregate that again and again and again. That's really, really important. And again, look, Elizabeth Warren, she jumped in on this. Yeah.
She's continuing to do, like, look, it might be the case that, in terms of mass rhetoric, the snake emojis aren't helpful. But what is less helpful is the actions that the political candidate continues to do for the past month. This is a concerted effort to divide and frankly smear Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
So until she starts doing good work again, I'm not really sure what progressives
Well, look, in terms of reality, if you wanted a serious look, I'm sorry. I know this triggers people. She shouldn't have run. There was one candidate, and just as in 2016, she was the one to coalesce around. 2020, Sanders the one to coalesce around if you care about that agenda. But within the last, I remember 2 months ago, I said, I don't know if she drops out, she will endorse Sanders. And people were still having conniptions about that. There's no evidence here at critical junctures in the campaign where we were promised she's going to come out, she's going to take her gloves off against Biden. She did not take her gloves off against Biden. She smeared Bernie. Okay, what's happening now? Well, Bernie, her supposed formation person, is the front runner. He's getting everything but the kitchen sink, and that's coming soon as well, thrown at him. And an oligarch who is an agent of Wall Street, like the one issue that she's supposed to actually really have credibility on. She's criticized him a little bit, but she's doing her work in Nevada, teaming up on a disingenuous, dishonest smear, not only against Bernie, but now against Medicare for All. And if you go to the tweet, which we should pull here, Warren's tweet about the culinary thing, because this is really important here.
Where she's like, how dare you? How dare you push back against these lies? Well,
of course, that's the first part, is the just buying, doing the usual. Okay, so let's do it. No one should attack culinary 226. Of course, you should be able to attack the establishment leadership of anything, especially if it's undermining people's ability to get health care, and any actual progressive or person who cared about human beings would share that view. So right out of the gate, she's wrong. But let's get into this. Its members are fighting hard for themselves and their families. Okay, fine. Like every American, they want to see American get high quality and affordable health care.
Affordable.
And I'm committed to working with them to achieve that goal. Can we stop pretending that this is a serious advocate of Medicare for all? And not only can we stop pretending that, can we see that in action here, in addition to, we already accept, of course,
what's the work being done here?
Of course, she's going to smear Bernie. Okay, I guess if you want to accept that, you can accept that. But she is tangibly fighting here, in my opinion, against this tweet does not help single payer. I'll just leave it simple.
She
so if
hasn't
you care about
mentioned Medicare
policy
for all in a while.
No, so if you care about policy, and again, here's the distinction. I used to support Elizabeth Warren, and you know what? Frankly, maybe even I'm a normal person on Twitter. I still like Elizabeth Warren for whatever reason. Okay, good luck to you. Maybe your friends will help try to convince you that if you have some progressive politics, there's one option left. Okay, that's fine. And be polite and be nice about that. That campaign and her leadership are working against and smearing really vital, the most important left efforts in the country. And I'm going to say that.
Who's doing more damage in the race right now than Warren?
Who's doing more damage than her? And if you can't, and if that real objective reality critique triggers you, or some Will Menaker joke enough to vote against, Bernie, then all I've got is the new Mandela impression for you. Like, I'm leaving the ANC. Waters and Sulu triggered me at a meeting. It's petty and narcissistic and delusional. And I don't even think many people are really doing it. I think it's purely
it's a media narrative.
It's a media narrative.
There are a few out there. Like, I've met them.
But they've got it from the candidates.
Yeah, they're learning it from the top down. And that attitude cannot be indulged.
Well, yeah,
I voted for Hillary Clinton because of very specific, discrete policy issues. And this is something, I don't care what she tweeted. This is somebody who has harmed, who was complicit in some of the worst, in policies that led to open-air slave markets in Libya, and an assassination of a major Honduran environmental leader that was the result of a coup she backed. I sat down and said, I can support this because of the Dreamers. I knew people, and forget even me, I knew people who, if Hillary Clinton lost, it would materially harm their careers because they might have been on the other side of that primary fight, and the Clintons keep score like that. And they still were like, yeah, but can't have Donald Trump. If you know that exists in the world and you're sitting here and you're just like, hey, I'll get comments about Elizabeth Warren. I'm sorry, I can't. That's actually really sick, and you got to look at yourself.
Yep. They're doubling down on this weird strategy, too, that we may also recognize from 2016 because she has some of the same staffers working for her, where she kind of will poke the bear, if you will, by spreading a disingenuous smear against Bernie. And then, Bernie's supporters, many of whom are passionate, will respond to it. And then she'll say, oh, no, I'm being attacked. What's wrong with these Bernie bro people? And I just don't think it's going to work.
I don't think it's going to work, but I think, sorry.
It's always avoiding the actual content of the debate. So whether it's this Nevada stuff, or whether it's the Working Families Party thing, or whether it was the private phone, the conversation that she leaked that conversation without detailing it through her aides, and never had to give an accounting of it herself, but still leaned behind the smears.
Right.
So it's they're creating these things where we never actually talk about the content of Medicare for all versus union healthcare and what this actually means, right? We instead have this second order conversation about tone policing, and it is just, and I'm sorry, all this comes from is people's discomfort with democracy in an age of technological media.
Absolutely. And total and complete entitlement.
I mean,
and
she
also
sacrificed all of her credibility that she had built up over years and years for this. And it's really sad.
I don't care. I don't care about it. But and also just really quick, it's not it. And this is just to underline this point, and then please, give the eulogy for Warren's credibility. But there's as Chuck Todd still has not apologized for comparing people advocating online for a family of Holocaust victims, survivors, to brown shirts.
He was reading like a Federalist writer, but anyway, continue.
And there has never been, ever a distinct. So when these stories are reported, I don't know, are they saying I'm triggered by some joke that I'm offended by because that's what I have time in my life to do? Or is it literally, because I've seen other articles where examples of Bernie bro violence is saying hey, you're actually being misleading on Medicare for all. I'm going to point that out to you. And that goes back to the David Adler research on who is most uncomfortable with democracy, centrists.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're sad about Warren. Go ahead.
I mean, okay, I kind of feel like a dumbass because I'm not usually taken in by politicians, but I liked her. She seemed sincere. She seemed like someone who'd been fighting for progressive values for a very long time, ever since she had her come to Jesus moment.
A couple decades, maybe.
You shouldn't be a Republican. She'd worked with Bernie on a lot of stuff. She seemed like a good lady. And
can I just add before you say, I first heard of Warren in the context of some people who I knew who were taking finance internships, and they heard from higher ups people, we would talk about Bernie in that context, and who's even farther to the left of Bernie? This was 10 years ago. There's this Elizabeth Warren. You should hear how these high ups on finance talk about her. So that was credibility back then, right? You don't hear that about Democrats terribly often. So I I do also understand where Jamie's coming from here.
I'm not going to work in the ANC anymore because Govan and Becky was very rude in a meeting. And so I say we let apartheid continue. I am recommending that everybody in my contingent engage in self-care and eat extra chocolate.
She really appealed to that, like, you know, girl boss feminist in me. But maybe that's on me.
It's not enough people, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's also not. That's not how it's not enough folks to build a coalition. But I whatever. Sure. I mean, actually, Crystal Ball had a similar. She was bummed. We talked about this last night too. I mean,
and her staff did this to her.
No, her staff didn't just. I mean, look.
But
I think
she
the
went
other
along
thing,
with it,
the other
so.
problem with Warren though is that it's just not a comprehensive candidacy. Like there's some specific areas that she has leadership and a deep understanding on that are really important, but she never had it. Like.
Well, they wouldn't be trying this shit if it was a comprehensive candidacy.
But she's not a comprehensive politician. And that's what I said from the fucking beginning, but nobody wants to listen. All right, let's go ahead. I mean, and it's so funny because some folks got so whiny and freaked out by me talking about, like, I don't know, the military budget. And if anything, I was way too diplomatic because this should have been put out to pasture in the beginning. I did my best. All right, let's do this. This is great. People should remember that James Carville talked a lot of shit about Barack Obama. I remember actually one line James Carville had was that if Hillary Clinton gave Barack Obama one of her balls, then they would both have two. This is very smart of Bernie Sanders to not only dunk on Carville, but remind people in the broader Democratic coalition, I'm not the only Democratic frontrunner that James Carville's talked a bunch of unhinged shit about.
James Carville, who's obviously a longtime Clinton loyalist, was supporting Senator Michael Bennet, who obviously dropped out of the primary race last night. He said this week that core Democratic voters aren't interested in being in what he said a cult. He said they're not interested in socialism and revolution and other things he called foolishness. How you win an election, 78 years old, screaming in a microphone about the revolution. I don't know if he was actually screaming at the time, although it's very possible, knowing James. But so I want to give you a chance to respond.
Look, James, in all due respect, is a political hack who said very terrible things when he was working for Clinton against Barack Obama. I think he said some of the same things. Look, we are taking on the establishment. This is no secret to anybody. I guess the former head of Goldman Sachs attacked me yesterday.
Yeah, he had
We're
some
taking on
things
Wall
as well.
Street. He did, yeah, Wall Street. And the insurance companies don't like me. And you know what? The pharmaceutical industry, which is charging us 10 times more for the same drugs they sell in Canada, they don't like me either. Nor does the fossil fuel industry, because their product happens to be destroying our planet. Nor does the military-industrial complex or the prison-industrial complex. We are taking on Trump, the Republican establishment, Carville, and the Democratic establishment. But at the end of the day, the grassroots movement that we are putting together of young people, of working people of color, want real change.
But you know,
and they want us to take.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you know, though, it's not all, just establishment folks who have a vested interest. I mean, there are, American citizens who, went out to vote in New Hampshire and voted for Klobuchar or voted for Buttigieg or in some cases Biden, who just feel like revolution is it's just too much. They maybe like their plans. They don't want their insurance taken away for something else in government hands they don't have, any idea about.
Well, first of all, I think if you look at the issues that we are talking about, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, enormously popular. Demanding that the wealthy and the powerful and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes, enormously powerful and popular. Making public colleges and universities tuition free. As I said earlier, Medicare for all was one of the reasons we won in New Hampshire. It is very popular in New Hampshire, and I suspect among Democrats all over this country. Criminal justice reform, immigration reform.
Okay, so this is really good. And you know what I really liked? We'll do this Carville thing in a second. It's funny. But the work that Bernie did there was actually really great. And I think it's a testament to Anderson Cooper, frankly, relatively speaking. that Cooper conceded the obvious, which is that if you're a Democratic mega consultant and cable news talker, of course you have a vested interest against Bernie Sanders. You've undoubtedly, certainly Carville's worked for fossil fuel companies, any number of corporate clients. He works for, right-wing corporate-oriented members of the Democratic Party. And frankly, just even as an entertainer, which is what his primary job has been for a long time, he's certainly in an income bracket that I think he does support some progressive taxation on, but I doubt the kind of comprehensive reforms that Bernie's talking about. And so the fact that Cooper was able to just concede, okay, setting aside, like, point taken on vested interests, that speaks to how great Bernie was in that clip. And also, that's a good testing ground to me on as good as it's going to get with cable news. Because, Chris Matthews would just keep, hey, James Carville's won elections.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's totally off the rails at this
Cooper
point.
just said, you know what, dude? I'm going to give you the obvious point here about people's vested interest, but then I'm going to still kind of, get to the, affluent exurb folks who voted against you in New Hampshire, which is a totally valid question. So I very well done. This is James Carville's pad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's tastefully decorated.
Tastefully decorated.
Definitely not a sign that we need to just gouge rich people with taxes.
Yeah. This is very much a reflection of his sense of the pulse of middle America.
A luxurious Bayou song.
If you needed more evidence that we shouldn't let people have this kind of money, look what they're spending it on.
That looks
actually
like
the outside of that
made
house
into
looks
one.
pretty nice.
Go back to the photo. Yeah.
People don't want to hear about raising taxes and shit. Certainly the normal down-home common sense people, they don't want to hear about government programs and shit.
Oh my goodness. They just ruined
They don't want to hear about
house.
nothing like that. They're trying to help out. They want
Godliness
practical
is
common
part of
sense
the New
solutions.
Orleans tradition.
Oh my God. It looks like I don't know what.
Looks like a fruit roll up.
Yeah.
It looks like a fruit roll-up.
It's like a bordello made of fruit roll-ups.
And that's, of course, Mary Matlin.
James Carville lives in literal Candyland.
Must be nice.
I'm just looking up here. Just give me 1 second to vamp here. Okay. James Carville, who, again, you know what's amazing? I will still actually give him more credit than, like, the vast majority of these people on television for at least occasionally understanding that you need to, like, hit the banks. I'm trying to find can somebody look up and find James Carville's corporate client list? I think that would be some very edifying reading. Polling and anecdotal experience, phone banking shows that there's a lot of untapped goodwill for Bernie being tempered down by electability. Still, the case can be made that he's electable. Support from older part of the Democratic electorate will come. I think that's really true. And I think that that's exactly why, all of a sudden, like,
I don't want to hear about that shit. Debt cancellation.
Yep.
That's why that's garbage is all over
Like
cable
I said,
right now.
a lot of people are concerned about electability, and fairly so, because Trump is a monster. And they gave us a little pamphlet for specifically that purpose when we were canvassing in New Hampshire, to show people a list of Bernie's accomplishments, as well as how he is polling the best against Trump in many polls.
That's right. And I think, by the way, actually Bill Maher made this point that I'm about to read. It's occurred to me to recently that the set which bemoans the online behavior of so-called Bernie bros should start considering the value of unleashing just that sort of campaign to counter the pro-Trump brigade.
We're ready for it.
Yeah, believe me. And I think clearly we're the only ones on that level. I think we can all agree, the only ones with a prayer of being able to handle those people. Great TMBS last night. Solidarity forever left is best.
Liberals aren't as hurt when a Trump person is mean to them because they're also not correct, whereas Bernie people are. And it hurts a lot more when that's the case.
Indeed.
We're going to win the posting wars, folks. The Bernie army is the only one that can do it.
Did you see Bill Maher had that? He's like, I'll tell you what I'm starting to like about Bernie. He's got a group of motherfuckers who will fight when that shit gets dirty. And I was like, all right, Bill gets it. The weed haze is emerging.
Look, people can bend the knee in whatever way they want to, but
exactly,
it bends.
Bill Maher can do it in his weird edgelord way.
You're calling from an 847 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
It's Josh from Chicago.
Josh from Chicago. How are you?
I'm good. I just got back from New Hampshire.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Where we fucking won.
Where we
Hell
won.
yeah.
We won.
We won.
Ran into
The Klobuchar did win. We won.
good seeing you for a second at the Strokes
Yeah, at the
concert
Strokes.
/ Bernie
At the
rally.
Strokes.
Wearing my shirt from
Yeah,
it
that
today.
was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I actually did want to talk about New Hampshire, but I actually also want to quickly add something about the Warren thing. I know I told you guys this. I may have told you guys this. I went to it wasn't a rally. It was like a meet and greet she was giving. It was like almost a year ago now exactly. And someone asked her, it was like really early in her campaign, about Medicare for all. And it was framed as if this woman was basically, she's like, I can't afford health care. I can't afford the deductibles. I can't afford my prescriptions. And it was really, she gave such a tone-deaf answer to that question. And otherwise, she was actually, it was really impressive to see her speak. She basically just ignored the question and talked about affordable healthcare access. And I even brought this up with her staff afterwards. I was like, what the hell is she doing? And the woman who asked it was clearly upset. And so I think my reaction to all this is, I'm not angry at her. I'm more just disappointed. Well, it's like my dad would say, it's like I had higher expectations of her.
I don't. No one's been listening to me. I feel like the guy in Peaky Blinders. Nobody fucking listens. Listen, Jesus. If she was committed to this agenda, she would have said, "How can I help you, Bernie, to get you elected president?"
Yeah.
And if she was really committed to this agenda, frankly, and I actually agree with Crystal Ball. I think Elizabeth Warren could be running for her second term right now. When I look back at 2016, like I legit think she could be.
That's true, but I also just cannot imagine her, especially this past month, to run against.
I'm not
talking about Trump
or even the Clinton.
I can't picture her running against Hillary Clinton.
No.
Absolutely not.
Oh, you want a safe space? Well, guess what?
I see no indication she'd be able to do anything.
No, I mean, no, that's also true. I mean, the whole way that her and her team have campaigned have been just like the combination of total fecklessness and entitlement is, yeah, you're right. They wouldn't have been able to run against Hillary Clinton.
I'm not surprised that she's getting owned by Amy Klobuchar either, because Amy Klobuchar is tough.
Amy Klobuchar is a psychopath.
She was really popular. I mean, I know you said
it's
this.
New Hampshire.
But like 4 of like the 10 houses I knocked on election day were all like doing for Klobuchar.
New Hampshire's a Klobuchar state.
Like,
that's a real Klobuchar
It's
state.
an open primary. There are
Thanks for the
tons of
call, Josh.
Republicans who are going to go, who don't like Trump, who are going to vote for someone like Klobuchar, who's like, I'm going to do the hard work to give you nothing you deserve or want.
Actually, Republicans could not vote in the primary, but people who were not registered as Democrats could.
Let me just actually do this really quick. This is a really important thing because in a funny way, it loops with the whole lifestyle policing of Mike Bloomberg.
Oh my God.
I don't support punitive taxes on the poor in any way. But of course, I believe there's other policies you need to do to clean up agriculture, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a piece from the Daily Beast. One of Amy Klobuchar's biggest backers is the worst company in the world. That's the literal headline. I can't stand big money in politics, Klobuchar said in an exchange about the outside influence of the super rich in government. I didn't come from money. And I just don't think that people look at the guy in the White House can say, can I get someone richer? I don't think that they think that. Now, it goes on to say that Cargill is one of her largest contributors and backers in her career and in her Senate races.
It's a sort of a shadowy, privately owned family giant corporation in agriculture and that sort of stuff. Big in Minnesota.
Even among Minnesota politicians, Klobuchar ranks amongst Cargill's favorites. The senator is the top recipient from Cargill's PAC and employees this cycle, receiving 5 times almost as much as the conglomerate's next favorite member of Congress, and has been one of the company's top recipients most of her career. The relationship has been mutually advantageous on issues ranging from greenhouse gas emission regulations to labels for genetically modified food to sodium in school lunches. Klobuchar is voted in line with Cargill's extensive lobbying agenda. Klobuchar has also gone out of her way to cite Cargill as, quote, a private sector leader in environmental issues, despite a long record of fines for environmental violations and accusations that it has profited from the use of child slave labor in West Africa.
Oh, geez.
She sourced staff from Cargill. In 2015, she hired a former Cargill lobbyist who eventually rose to become her legislative director. And so this is just something to bear in mind. In 2011, Klobuchar wrote a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, urging the Obama administration to continue counting tomato paste as a vegetable in school lunches and to reconsider the quantity and proposed timeline of a plan to cut sodium consumption in school lunches. This was a big thing in the 80s. Reagan saying that ketchup could count as a vegetable was a personification of Reagan's war on the poor and total disregard for poor students' health. Well, Amy's still fighting that in 2011 and for getting them to have more sodium. This is a big deal, and people in urban areas, I think, need to think much more seriously about ag. It affects the entire food supply, and family farmers are getting destroyed across this country. And it also is enormously environmentally harmful. Here's a couple of criticisms of Cargill, who's, again, Amy Klobuchar is one of their main go-to senators. This is just let's just read the top lines of Wikipedia. Environmental damage. Palm oil production in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. Controversy around, what is that?
The Santarem port and Amazon deforestation. Broken wastewater pipeline in Australia.
I could see why she hasn't called for freeing Lula. Building restorable wetlands. Release of 65 million gallons of acidic water into Tampa Bay.
Then we reach our second subhead. Human rights abuses. Forced child labor in Cote d'Ivoire. Uzbek cotton. Dayton, Virginia employees contamination
is the third area. Mercury poisoning in Iraq. Beef recall in the United States. Cargill, Australia exports.
Jesus.
This is, and now actually,
it's like a Koch brothers that flies under the radar, basically. Another private family company.
Exactly. Now
Minnesota.
Now let's play this Warren clip. Because again, this is another thing. We're just judging by work here, folks. Elizabeth Warren is joining on a utterly disingenuous smear that Pete Buttigieg concocted, that our revolution, which whatever, we can get, I don't care about the minutia of how we define PACs. The reality, and this is why I don't like conversations that focus on the technicalities of things like PACs or money. If a PAC, if a contribution comes from a labor union that is fighting for real things, if it comes from a organization that is grassroots funded, I don't care. Good. Thank God. We need those things to fight back against capital. I don't care about the process. You've just learned about Cargill and Klobuchar, and to be clear, this is very much a pace with her presidential run. This is not just in her record as a senator and all of a sudden she's run for president. She's, of course, not taking their contributions. This is Elizabeth Warren. Again, just look at the work she's doing now.
And the only way we can take on corruption in Washington is if we're not beholden to it. Let's just check the facts. Amy and I are the only candidates in this race who are not either billionaires or supported by super PACs. And unlike other candidates, I don't fund my campaign by spending time behind closed doors sucking up to wealthy donors.
All right, whatever. We know all the talking points. So I will take our revolution over Cargill.
The Sunrise Movement.
I will take the Sunrise Movement over private equity, over Cargill. I mean, this is... whatever. I won't go off on it. I'll just say, look at the work that's being done.
I think you can also, I will just say, lies are many different things, including omission and emphasis.
Indeed.
I saw people speculating that her and Klobuchar might pull some kind of last minute stunt, like that Cruz Fiorina running mate stunt they did last time around to
That
try
would
to
be
get more
perfectly
attention.
aligned with the New York Times op-ed board saying vote for both of them. So, we'll see if this is a winning strategy or not.
But like, god damn, look at who you're aligning yourself with, Liz.
But I mean, yeah, and goddamn, people think a little bit more deeply and don't listen to a gaslight campaign for months. Going to a Warren town hall tonight. What should I ask her? If she performs poorly in Nevada, will she drop out and endorse Bernie? Okay.
Ask her about her
too
powwow
angry
chow
to-
recipe.
Yeah, ask her. Could you refresh her on the powwow chow recipe? Would you recommend that supporters who feel personally offended by a Will Menaker joke vote against healthcare? Could she formalize that Twitter jokes are more important than major policy issues? Jamie, I feel you. OMG, that James Carville impression with the house pick is insane. People don't want to hear that shit.
That was
They
Michael
wanna
doing
hear-
the James Carville impression, by the way, not Jamie.
No, I think
No,
she
I'm
feels
joking.
Jamie. Oh, right. She feels Jamie on the Warren yada yada yada.
She took on Wall Street.
Kinda. I mean, look.
As bourgeois politicians go, I thought she was pretty good.
I mean, look.
It's true, actually, and it shows how far that gets you.
I guess my thing too is like, Chris Murphy is pretty good as far as bourgeois politician. Like that's the other part of my problem is like, if we sure, like there's a couple dozen people in Congress that are decent-ish. I don't, but I wasn't gonna go, oh wow, they're actually to the left of Bernie Sanders. Like, come on.
Like,
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
like, I deeply want there to be a woman who I would like to vote for president.
Of course. Fair enough.
Sorry.
Apology not accepted. We don't have time for that nonsense.
At least you apologize.
At least you apologize. Welcome back to the Bernie Sanders social media terrorism clinic.
Now we got 5,000 accounts to harass by Nevada.
Here's the pie
Getting the
chart.
replies, folks.
I have only seen 100 responses to Sam Stein.
Okay,
we're not meeting our metrics.
Focusing too much on the media professionals. Go after the actual voters of Warren. They're idiots.
They're idiots. They're stupid. And remember, Trotsky thought making fun of people's personal appearance could be revolutionary. It's like this. It's like this. It's like the YouTube ads. Hi, asking you a small favor. Could you send out more death threats?
I am once again asking for threatening memes to be deployed against my opponents.
Hi, we're making great strides, but the corporate media is striking back, which is why I really would like the bull shitting out on its own balls to be tweeted out as much as possible. Thank you. If we can
option.
If we can call Chuck Todd
no premiums, no deductibles is fine, but there's not enough masculine energy behind it.
Oh my God. If we could call Chuck Todd a brainless hack just 400 more times before midnight, we will meet our goals. Thank you.
Meanwhile, of course, I mean, look, if that was like the whole game we wanted to play for the primaries, because obviously, of course, the Bernie campaign is the only campaign that ever gets questions like this. But I mean, that would have been interesting to be like, hey, Warren, Harris, what about this person, saying that Bernie looks like Shylock? I mean, like, okay, I guess.
No, the
we want to play the
K-Hive-
whole time just trying to police people's YouTube video.
If the things people say on Twitter are violence, then the K-Hive are terrorists.
K-Hive are the
Yes.
Maoists of the current.
Yeah, the K-Hive are like the Pol Pot of online discourse. Because, like Bernie people, well, look at Peter Dow, right? We were saying this earlier. Peter Dow, everybody loves
Welcome with
Peter
open
Dow.
arms.
Welcome with open arms. The K-Hive are like, you want to say thank you to Kamala Harris for that legislation? You weren't there when this woman offered herself as a leader.
Honestly.
You deserve to die.
Look, the moderates need to just walk the walk of Dow. He's shown the way already, folks. I mean, we made fun of him
The Dow of Dow.
mercilessly multiple times. I
Right.
still have Verret stuff saved on this computer, right? we mocked up Verret thing. I took a lot of time in Photoshop to do mock up Verrets. And
all right,
guess what?
everybody, no more Verret jokes.
Guess what? He starts doing.
Just get your death threats ready.
He starts doing good work, and then he's welcome to the team. If Elizabeth Warren starts doing good work for the likely or the only viable progressive candidate in the race right now, then guess what?
team.
She's welcome back on the team. That's all it takes.
She can turn it around. Cynthia Nixon endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. The other night, I saw her speak at the Bernie rally about how she came around. Everybody loved it.
I'm Mr. Personal Evolution, fuck cancel culture.
What have you done for me lately?
I'm all about what have you done for me lately and let people change. But I'm also not about a passive aggressive anti-people control freakery that reduces like you should be sitting there and thinking like, can I be doing something offline? And then these are people that are literally trying to convince you that a networked major union faction it's like, because even the most machine union people who are undermining progress, they've been in real fights in their lives. Okay. These are not people who are just like, I'll tell you what, this is worse than when they called the fire department on us with a false alarm.
I was called a shill with a dollar sign.
Called a shill with a dollar sign. This is the worst experience I've ever had in organizing.
Some of these people have been in physical altercations. Like it's not,
but they have not been.
They're not a bunch of snowflakes.
If they just,
but have they been ratioed before?
Yeah, exactly. If the casinos would just come out and hold a giant billboard that said "shill," these people would walk off the picket line because it's just way too triggering. Could you imagine? But imagine again. I'm sorry. One more time. Just like it was a big setback with the Shopville massacre, but I would recommend that you eat some chocolate. Take a break. Pat a pet. He starts, he's like, P.W. Botha and I are the only ones that don't take PAC money. Waters in Sulu is super rude. All right, let's take another call. You are calling from a 248 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
This is Tyler from Montana.
Hey, Tyler, what's on your mind?
Hey, I had some good news and then a question.
Cool.
Good news is I just mailed in my absentee ballot for Bernie in Michigan.
Nice.
Thank you. Question, not in the same good spirits. I'm registered in Michigan. My question was, if Bloomberg gets the nomination, should I vote for him in the general? And why?
Honestly, don't go there yet. But
right.
I will be
personally. I'm not in New York. 100% not going to vote for him in the general.
In New York, I'm not voting for anybody besides Bernie in the general. But I would honestly say that Mike Bloomberg represents something really different than even any number of horrible, despicable Pete Buttigieg, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden candidates. It's something different. And if Mike Bloomberg is able to buy his way through the process, we're in a formal transition to plutocracy. And so my content and my thinking, I don't know where that will go. And I will tell you, though, that it's going to go way beyond some kind of, it's not the old Bernie or bust. How do you feel? It is a very different kind of conversation. So I don't know the answer to that. I will say, I'm not going to discourage anybody from saying that they want Trump out and they will vote that way. I'm never going to discourage that. But Donald Trump and Mike Bloomberg is Singapore versus Likud. And that means that our options and our viability is very limited. And Mike Bloomberg will absolutely be, in many respects, literally a much more efficient authoritarian leader.
Alex Breen has a new article on his authoritarianism. And Ryan Cooper just tweeted this. It's a quote retweet of Blake Zeff, who originally said, the degree to which Michael Bloomberg is using his fortune to fundamentally alter and manipulate U.S. politics to his personal advantage extends way beyond ads. And then Ryan Cooper says, Mike Bloomberg has created an enormously effective empire of bribery that has corrupted both parties. Yeah, and that's how I feel too. And I think the idea, like, when you have to start doing the calculus, like, who's the worst authoritarian? Donald Trump with a split Congress where there's like resistance Democrats, or Mike Bloomberg where he has a Republican-controlled Congress, but like Democrats are on his side. Like, I just think, like you said, like, we're so far into authoritarianism that
we're not in a voting. We're not in a harm minimization thing anymore.
No.
And I'm not talking about getting some fantasy about, like, I'm just saying genuinely I don't know. Like, the content that I do and what I will talk about and what I will try to foreground, I don't know yet, but it's going to require a fundamental rethink. And I honestly would say, in such a catastrophic scenario, the conversation about how you're voting is not even, that's thousands.
Rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, so whatever. Do whatever.
It's time to
resort
resort to some extra electoral tactics if it's Bloomberg versus
We
Trump.
need to start looking France immediately.
And I think that would hopefully, silver linings, radicalize more people to get on board. I don't want that scenario to happen. I haven't seen a lot of evidence yet that Bloomberg would be net substantially better than Trump. I can't say that I would vote for Bloomberg. I would vote for any actual Democrat against Trump for whatever that may do. I would only volunteer for Bernie. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think I
told myself at the beginning I'd vote for Biden. I'd vote for Twerp Pete, even though I hate him. I'll vote for anyone else.
But Matt Karp just made this. Matt Karp just made this point to me on TMBS we just recorded, that it's, again, take Hillary Clinton, who, again, you can't get worse than her, or Joe Biden. But these to some extent, these people still embody the contradictions and mess of the Democratic Party, which is mostly awful. But part of those contradictions, there still is, okay, some labors here. Okay, patronage networks and unhealthy relationships that have at least been built on somewhat peer-to-peer grounds. Like, Bloomberg is not that. Bloomberg is just somebody, I'm an oligarch. I don't like how we're doing oligarchy, and I'm going to buy this whole process to alter that and be in consultation with not like party leaders or anybody, because I'll just pay them off, but maybe like a meeting of the brain trust with Warren Buffett, Bill Gates. And if people don't understand that that is immensely dangerous, I don't know what to tell you. And I think the disturbing thing is I think there is a fair amount of people who actually want that. Yeah. But we're going to need to, have that conflict.
Well,
thanks for the call.
A lot of people who would support, say, maybe never Trumpers, maybe centrist Democrats, who would like somebody who has, the same violent, racist, horrible policies, but maybe talks a little bit more nicely. Bloomberg doesn't even do that. He said a ton of racist and sexist things throughout his career. And I'm just glad that we have the internet now so people can bring it back up again and let everybody know.
Let's play. But again, I think it's, we have to be this is very illustrative, because it's not like talking about his record is obviously unbelievably important. But when we're in the mainstream corporate media conversation and in the pseudo woke conversation of a lot of people, this is very illustrative about how that stuff is always just disingenuous and deployed, because we can spend, Soledad O'Brien. I mean, it's an easy example, but I mean, this is somebody who obviously has some type of weird personal fixation with Bernie Sanders, but like, she tweeted out like, oh, that was a good apology about Mike. So we can, Bernie Sanders said something I actually won't understand and lie about and will distort from 1975 that is completely contradictory from his record. That we can talk about. Somebody can just come on and say they just personally don't like him. That we can do.
Oh my God.
What we cannot do, but what we can also do with Bloomberg is, well, let's just play this. I mean, this is Mike Bloomberg getting confronted about the video that Benjamin Dixon revealed. And I want to just
friend of the show.
Really, really underline that this is actually different than Mike Bloomberg said something privately racist and it's disgusting and we don't like it. Okay, whatever. Right? Just being really blunt. This is somebody saying something racist about a policy that they implemented that terrorized entire populations of New York City. This wasn't, oh, wow, shock of all shocks. A 70-something oligarch white guy has a dumb comment about race at a meeting, okay? This is, I had a systemically racist policy that terrorized Black and Hispanic men between 15 and 25. I'm praising this policy and saying it should be Xeroxed across the country. And I want to be really clear about this because this is not somebody said something that was bad.
Well, a lot of people
This is I'm bragging about an almost borderline apartheid style policy and saying it should be implemented. So this is Mike Bloomberg responding to being confronted on that.
Mr. Mayor, why did you say what you said in that 2015 speech?
I don't think those words reflect how I led the most diverse city in the nation, and I apologize for the practice and the pain that it caused.
But why did you say it?
It was 5 years ago, and it's just not the way that I think. And
What were you, 19 5 years ago?
What were you, 25? What were you, 50? What were you, still mayor of New York? You weren't even mayor of New York.
It was a different time.
It was a different time.
5 years ago, and it's just not the way that I think, and that's not the way. It doesn't reflect what I do every day.
Yeah, back to the 2015 comments. So you have apologized for using and promoting the policy of stop and frisk, but those comments on that audio, they're more than just talking about stop and. I mean, they're pretty derogatory comments about African Americans and the neighborhoods that they live in. So beyond the policy, do you apologize for those remarks?
Don't reflect the way that I've governed or the way that I run my company.
No. They do.
Look at the stats.
Look at the stats. We can pull the stats up, but also go very importantly, this doesn't reflect how I governed a diverse city. It did. Yeah. Your whole point of a diverse city was you wanted to make it unaffordable for poor and working class people, and you wanted to police and terrorize communities of color, both because it overlapped with those economic policies, but also as a broader signal, frankly, of how you would take a paramilitary approach to huge swaths of the city to indulge racism and class anxiety in your base. That is how you look at governing a diverse city. And again, this is going to be very revealing for a lot of people because I'm sure that Mike Bloomberg promoted executives from diverse backgrounds. And I'm sure that if you sat Mike Bloomberg down, he in himself sees absolutely no difference between being like Barack Obama was a good president and we needed an African-American leader and we need apartheid law enforcement policies. That's what a lot of people in this cohort think. And that is what happens when you, and again, if you don't have a systemic or a class analysis. And a lot of people, including for the very base material reasons, are going to overlook that. There's a new piece that Ryan Grimm, I'll touch on it briefly. Bloomberg is hiring so many operatives that local state campaigns are starving for help. And he starts by talking about a very inspiring story of a local activist who ran. She got involved in politics after Donald Trump. She ran and she was running in 2018, Leaper threw herself into 2018 midterms helping Democratic state Senate campaign. And it goes on to say that she announced a run for a Connecticut state house seat opened up last November when the Republican incumbent announced she was going to run for a new office. It was the kind of suburban district Democrats have been flipping across the country, and Lipper decided to take a shot at the special election set for January 14th, 2020. She had the backing of the area's former congressman and current senator, Chris Murphy, a team of volunteers out knocking on doors. Her campaign manager had just run a successful re-election campaign for the mayor of Bridgeport. He posted on Facebook in mid-November that Leaper's race had real meaning for him, explaining that his family had lived in that district since 1962, and nowhere is more at home to me than my state in this district. It's personal, he wrote, and that's why I believe Jennifer Leaper has the vision for this place that we both love so much. And within just 3 weeks until the election, however, he was back with a new status update. I'm taking my talents to Madison, Wisconsin, he posted on December 26th. He had taken a job with billionaire Mike Bloomberg's newly launched presidential campaign, which is offering lucrative strategies as deputy organizer, it would later emerge. Without a captain in the field, Leeper's campaign flagged. On election day, Leeper lost to her challenger by just 79 votes. Republicans held on to the seat. Bloomberg has entered the presidential race in November and has since spent more than $300 million of his own money in an effort to secure the Democratic nomination. So this already is, even if he loses, the utter gutting of democracy. And it shows, I mean, look, people are starved for money. This is a bigger strategic problem on the left. People can't make a proper living. There's plenty of people like, I believe, Elijah Manley coming forward and saying, man, it really would have made a huge difference to make over $6,000 a month and have benefits. Which, by the way, that's a solid middle class. That's what everybody doing this work should get paid for if we had proper organizing networks. Here's Jumaane Williams, New York's public advocate, trying to remind everybody on MSNBC what this guy's record is.
I mean, if he can make amends for it in this presidential campaign.
I want to see him not run. Okay. And so he had, the things he's talking about now, he had 12 years to talk about as mayor, 10 years after that. Where was this? And so if he wants to do all these things, he can be philanthropic. What I'm worried about is he says he can't be bought. That's because he's doing the buying. And so I'm worried about the ads that he's putting out there. What I'm hoping people will do is listen to those of us who know him, who have worked with him. Can't say he's the worst person in the world, but his policies that he put forth were very harmful to black and brown communities. And I have to say this, not just in policing. We have a housing epidemic that's really a Bloomberg issue. We have an education epidemic that's really a Bloomberg issue. And so we have to be real about that. And I'm hoping that people will, while he has not been on these primaries, as we move forward, do the research, listen to the people who have known him. I'm happy. I want everyone to apologize for the things they've done. You should probably not apologize the day before you begin to run for president.
Yeah, probably not.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of this drill tweet that's a classic where he said, trying to heal, please donate to my GoFundMe. $10 will make me less racist. $100 will make me extremely less racist. Thank you.
Or, trying to heal, take $10,000 from me to forget that I'm an oligarch.
So if you're a Bernie bro, you should apply for those jobs and try to get that money and waste it.
Hell yeah, that's praxis. I also love it that he's been trying to buy placement in all of these popular meme accounts on Instagram, including the Fat Jew, who is such a scumbag. He basically just reblogs memes from other people and cuts off the credit, and that's how he makes money. And even the Fat Jew would not lower himself. So I want you all to think about that. Let me just read you what he said. He said, ahem, they asked me to do it. I said no. I grew up in New York City, so I can tell you firsthand, Bloomberg is a colossal shitbag. From the subjugation of minorities through stop and frisk policies to his hardline anti-marijuana stance, dude is a total hoe. I'd encourage any meme account owner to take shmoney from basically any brand and use it to buy sick shit like jet skis and purebred corgis because brands are trash and deserve to have their money taken. But this dystopian Black Mirror simulation is too much for me. I now need to be shot into the effing sun. K-bye.
Wow. I was never expecting the Fat Jewish to come join the revolution, but welcome.
Welcome, Fat Jew. Oh, wow. Look at that. Welcome,
look at how open we are.
Look at how open
welcoming we are.
Yeah.
Like, but you mentioned something about my speech in Johannesburg. I am going.
This Palestinian boy stole some of my content, so now I no longer think our struggles are linked.
Yes, our struggles are no longer linked. A Palestinian has gaslit me.
Final call of the day. You're calling from a 570 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? 570. Are you there?
Cool.
Yeah. Are
Can
you there?
you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Hello, this is Michael Bloomberg.
Hey, hello,
I'd
Mr.
like to
Bloomberg.
talk to you
How are
today.
you?
I'm doing well. Now, I've heard you say some pretty terrible things about me today, and I just wanted to come on the show, maybe work it out with you for a second, maybe propose a new policy you haven't heard.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bloomberg, you sound very sedated. I'll give you a minute. What do you propose?
Well, I'm a tad sedated, so what I was going to propose is a new tax policy, and it's somewhat new. I'm aiming to equalize the taxes.
Okay.
A lot of people have talked about a flat tax, but I've got sort of an alternative that I like to call the equality tax, in which everybody, regardless of income, every year, at the end of the year, owes $1 million. Now, a few of my friends in Wall Street said that maybe that would hurt their pockets a little bit, but I think they can manage. They can scrape by. And I don't know. I was just thinking.
This
maybe
actually does sound like something that you've proposed in the past. Mr. Mayor, would you care to give us your real name before you go?
Oh, my name's Aaron.
Aaron, thank you.
From Central PA.
Aaron from Central PA. I love it. I actually have heard Bloomberg say stuff like that. We're running a little tight, but thank you for the call. All right, folks. Sorry. As I said, we had to end by 2 today. But I will read a few IMs and then we'll be gone. Congressional baseball fan. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie opens tomorrow, and before you're considering going to see it, remember it was about a year ago that I broke the story that Sonic that is based on Michael Jackson and the personality of Bill Clinton. What? In light of the Epstein revelations and the rise of Shadow in Iowa, I think I've been proven right. So you may want to think long and hard about supporting this franchise.
Don't tell me that.
Yesterday, a Prominence Resistance Twitter account switched his endorsement from Warren to Bernie. We're want to win, folks. Oh, and by the way, welcome to that to us to the struggle, friend, and thank you for joining.
Come on in. The water's
Everybody
fine.
go tweet heart emojis and other friendly things. I would never support him because I was triggered. Never work with Governor Mbeki to end apartheid because he was gaslighting me at Robben Island.
I RT'd a good thread from a lady who went from Warren to Bernie recently. It was very heartfelt thread.
Seth Meyers is actually doing low-key work for Bernie. He treats him the best among any TV show on TV. I guess you mean like in the sense he doesn't treat him with like abject contempt and anti-Semitism. Pajama Boy, hey Mike, what do you think of I'll answer this, but I've already said it a million times, so you can loop that back to me. But I think you should go where you go. Let's see. Final IM of the day. Let's see. Final IM of the day. Joyce from PA. Bloomberg is advertising on lefty podcasts. MR can get some of that Bloomberg Shillery too. All right, folks. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made.